just so that I can, get a good record of this. I'm so excited today. First, I'd like to start out by welcoming you to Seven Urban Magazine, and I want to thank you for today's interview. So we really appreciate you taking the time to do this, and you are highly valued in the truth community. So let's get right to it. Um, Today's topic is gematria, the numbers game. Webster's describes gematria as a cryptograph in the form of a word whose letters have the numerical values of a word taken as the hidden meaning. The Kabbalistic method of explaining the Hebrew scriptures by means of cryptographic significance of the words. Zach, in your new book, The Number Games, you describe a secret political organization known as the Cabal, which originates from Kabbalah, an ancient and widely practiced mysticism. How are you certain that a secret society governs the world through this code? And how were you able to draw this conclusion?
Yeah, to answer that question, it didn't happen overnight, and it took from years of researching and investigating, and then, oh, I'm getting some feedback.
Uh-oh.
Let me see.
Can you hear me okay?
I hear you fine, but when I was talking, then I heard myself.
Maybe I should turn you down a little bit. How are you doing now?
Let's see. So I was saying it didn't happen overnight coming to that conclusion. It took years of investigating and researching. And then after starting to research and understand, then making predictions and accurately forecasting world events from major news stories, including celebrity deaths to mass shootings to rigged elections to what's going to happen in the world of rigged sports. And to go back and rewind, I started to realize or see the bigger picture right after 9/11. I was 18 years old at the time, and I just knew from the moment 9/11 happened, it was a lie. The story didn't make any sense. A man in a cave responsible, all these coincidences, military drills supposedly going on that caused confusion, 3 buildings that fell, even though only 2 planes hit buildings. And just the whole thing was an obvious lie. And what stood out to me on top of that lie was that they did it on 9/11, 911, just like the National Emergency Dialing Code, 911.
Mm-hmm.
I said, look at that, a national emergency on 911. And I knew there must be something about rituals and numbers, and of course, went back and began to research if there could be something more going on with numbers. And I realized doing my early days of investigating 9/11 that in 1968, 33 years before 2001, a significant number to secret societies such as Masonry, but I noticed in 1968, 911 was made the national emergency dialing code. World Trade Center construction began in New York City. George W. Bush graduated from Yale and Skull and Bones, powerful secret society. Masonic organization. The alumni of that society are referred to as bonesmen, which equals 33 in gematria, like masonry, like secrecy, like order, like federal, like New York, where it predominantly happened on 9/11. And
Wow.
but again, just so you start to research things like that, and you say, wow, they're working by certain patterns. Okay, this number must mean. And then I had questions like, what is 33? Why is 33 so important? Why make it about 33? And
Mm-hmm.
you learn there's this occult knowledge, things like Kundalini, about spiritual ascension up the 33 vertebrae, about controlling this energy up the 33 bones of the human vertebrae. And you start to learn that there's things like Hermeticism, and that's where a lot of these age-old expressions come from, like mind over matter. But you also learn within Hermeticism about things such as vibration and how everything carries a vibration. And when you can master the vibrations that things carry, you can use symbols essentially to influence people. Words, sound, colors.
Wow.
Everything has a vibration. So you start to realize, okay, the people who are aware of this knowledge, they must be the ones who wrote these Hermetic teachings, but kind of left out key details, almost as if they want people to go out and seek and find more, but give you the start.
Wow.
And so again, you just realize these undeniable patterns throughout history, and then again, you accurately forecast what happens. And I mean, for people who are new here and listening to all this, I mean, we literally predict the dates that storms happen before they happen because the patterns are so redundant. In May of this year, there was an article put out on May 7th, 2020, a date with 52 numerology. And this article was from Mainstream Science, and the experts said there was going to be more hurricanes than normal this year on a 52 date numerology. And I said, well, look at this. I just, my first book, I wrote about weather warfare by the numbers and why it was admitted to in 1952 by the Royal Air Force after a flash flooding experiment caused devastation in a small UK town, killing 30-some people. 52. I said they didn't admit that year by accident. In Gematria, flood is 52, Earth is 52, hurricanes 52. So we did that right after that May 7th article. We said, all right, let's just start circling the 52 dates in hurricane season. We circled July 25th, August 4th, August 24th, September 3rd, September 23rd, the 239th day of the year, which is the 52nd prime. Every single one of those dates, a hurricane made landfall on. Every single one of those dates I just named. And we just put them out in May. And since then, hurricanes and floods, in addition to the dates I just mentioned, there's been plenty more 52 dates. We just had one earlier this month, and Israel flooded on the 52 date numerology. Again, these patterns are so redundant throughout history. They coded this number 52 all over Katrina and so many other devastating hurricanes. Hurricane Harvey.
Yeah.
We told people in Texas, we said, look out for August 27th, 17, what was it? At least a week in advance, we said, watch out for August 27th, 17. That's a date with 52 numerology, and it's the 239th day of the year, which is the 52nd prime. And by the way, in the Bible, the book of the law, the Torah, where the flood happens, the book of the law equals 239, the 52nd prime, just like flood and earth are 52, like how we're on this calendar that has 52 weeks in a year.
Yeah.
Named after a pope, and the word pope is 52, and the Catholic Church to dominate the earth. The evidence is there. Everyone knows all roads lead to Rome. You learn the simple code they're using. You see how these people literally are. They're controlling so many things, even the military technology to influence the weather. And people will come up with the question, well, why do all this stuff? Again, it's all about control. It's all about destroy and rebuild. It's all about create a disaster, and then because you control the banks and the levers of the economies that are all based on interest and lending and profits off lending and always having more debt in circulation, you need these disasters because it's just the way this world's been built. The controllers have built a world around us. It needs disasters. It needs wars. It needs destruction. It needs human slavery. It needs people in cages. And again, I know I'm talking about a lot of things here, but I saw all these things when I was younger, and I realized there was something to numbers. There's a reason they're always reporting the same numbers, putting the same numbers in front of people's faces. Year after year, month after month, week after week. And again, when you follow the trail, you realize it all leads back to the 16th century when English was standardized as a 26-letter alphabet, when the Jesuits were created, when the Gregorian calendar was rolled out. You can just follow the bread trails through history from then up to now and see that this code's been in effect. History's been waged by this code, and you can predict what events are coming next before they happen. Just at the beginning of this week, Monday, November 23rd, we said 2 months in advance, we said circle that date. You're going to read about the death of a rapper that day. That's going to be a bad news day for rappers. And sure enough, who's dead? 21 Savage's brother. And why did we say that date? Because that was the day leaving 38 days left in the year and had 74 numerology. Rapper equals 74 with the alphabetic order, 38 with the alphabetic order and rules of numerology. These numbers terrorize every rapper, Notorious B.I.G., Tupac Shakur, a million more. And this November 23rd, you got the story about the death of popular rapper, at this day and age, 21 Savage's brother, who is also a rapper in the UK. And so again, with Gematria, you see what's really going on. You solve the mysteries. You see through the lies. You see through the propaganda, and you see how it's all cleverly calculated. It's all math. It's all simple addition. And once upon a time, it was a theory. I would say it's a rock-solid proven fact for people who are new to this work. Again, for 5 straight years, we've called damn near every single sports championship from the start of seasons. Pretty much. And again, another thing, we have a from the weekend that Dick Gregory died. From the weekend that Dick Gregory died, we have a consecutive streak every single month of being correct, sadly, about a celebrity dying on a date with 64 and 44 numerology. Kill equals 64 and 44. Comedian 64 and 44. There's been a number of comedians, but Dick Gregory, he died on a 64-44 date numerology. And I was just starting to catch on to it then, but I said, watch next month on the 64-44 date because it only comes up once a month. I said, watch next month. We'll be reading about another celebrity. Sure enough. I said, watch the next month. We've been documenting it every single month. And almost all these celebrities that die every single month on the 64-44 date, because kill again equals 64 and 44, almost every single time, their name or their age encodes 64, 44. And it's just such a, and again, it's just, this is the way it is. When you learn the knowledge, you see the patterns, you see what's really going on, and you just read these stories of the latest premature dead celebrity, and there's no reason for the cause of the death, and they already have the bullet point statement. The family just wants your prayers. It's like, don't these families want to know what's going on with why their 20-some-year-old was just found dead in the sheets for no reason? I mean, come on.
And that's just the truth. And even, Dick Gregory, if you go back, Dick Gregory was the one that spoke out on how Dr. King was really actually murdered. So it doesn't surprise me that he was killed either.
And what day was MLK killed? 4-4. What day was Malcolm X killed? A date with 44 numerology. They're just doing the same things all the time. You know, I did a video just last month. And I just brought up again, because I've talked about a million times, when the playoffs and finals come around, so many rituals with the death of LeBron James, who signed that monster contract with Nike while they were 44 years old back in the day. And I said, you just watch the way bodies drop for him, these same patterns, 44. Literally that same day, after I said that in the morning, there was a headline that day that his high school friend's sister from Akron had died mysteriously. She was just, somebody just pulled up on her and shot her to death, unsolved mystery. And how many weeks was it after LeBron's birthday? Exactly 44 weeks. And this is how it's been for 7 straight years.
Wow.
Talking about stuff in the morning, an hour later, I have a whole nother example to just add to the arsenal of what I've already been exposing for 7 straight years. That's why I'm probably the most frustrated person in the world, because I know there hasn't been a greater scientist on the planet in the last 7 years in terms of coming up with a scientific theory and proving that theory. And this is information people need to know, because they're out here worshiping these people, investing in these things. And this is the most evil stuff ever going on right in front of everybody's face. And they're just clueless. And they don't need to be clueless, because we're talking about basic addition. Kill, K the 11th letter, I the 9th, L the 12th, L the 12th. And for the person out there who might be going, how'd you come up with those values? Just write out A to Z and count up the letters. You'll see that K is the 11th letter, I is the 9th, A is the 1st, B is the 2nd, C is the 3rd, D is the 4th. This stuff is basic that they're doing to us every day. And just all throughout history, killing with the 44, MLK on 4-4, Malcolm X on 44. They make Obama the 44th, 44 years after the Civil Rights Act, running on hope. H is 8, O is 15, P is 16, E is 5, 44. This stuff's not a joke. And what I was showing that day before the story about LeBron's friend's sister being murdered 44 weeks after his birthday was the clip from Obama and LeBron laughing, their asses off about making a deal with the devil, because isn't that so funny? Isn't that so funny, you guys?
Yeah, because that's
when I
just
talk
so
about
funny.
making deals with the devil and just like fall out of our chair laughing, it's like, and then later that day you got another dead person connected to LeBron. It's like, man, this is sick. And not to mention, let's not forget what happened on Obama's birthday this year on August 4th.
That's right.
The rapper FBG Duck, he was shot down in Obama City, Chicago. At what time? 4:40.
Oh,
well, that's why I wish the people out there who knew, I wish somebody would call and say, you know what, I got to admit, it was me who called up FBG Duck and said, come meet me at that. Because something like that's got to be going on. I don't know how all these people are always on the right corner at the right time, unless they're all in on it together and it's just to sell more records. But somehow it's always like this, so...
And even, Zach, I really believe that, with King Von being in Atlanta, I'm sure that was some sort of a Dr. King ritual too, being that he probably was murdered right in the neighborhood that Dr. King, did most of his...
down there.
Yeah.
Behind a lot of these rituals, absolutely. Martin Luther King Jr., member of the Boule, almost everyone in his family dead in a Boule ritual, including himself.
That's right. His mother, his brother.
And again, again, the relevance, in March, we were showing how King Von's album release on March 6th was more confirmation that the Lakers would win the Rig Finals this year. And in that same video where we talked about that, we said we'll be talking about King Von's death real soon, too. We didn't even have to wait a year. We had to wait from March until... November 6th.
November 6th.
November 6th in Gematria. If you write out LeVon James, the name of that album with the alphabetic order, it's 116. And with the alphabetic order and rules
Oh,
numerology, it's 35. He died on 116, 35 weeks on the nose after the release of that album, while LeBron's 35 years old, while King James equals 35. And the real King James was made a Freemason at age 35. Things we've been talking about for years. That's how we knew LeBron was going to win the finals this year, how important that 35 is. And we saw it coded on the LeVon James album. The one mistake I made that day is I said, hey, let's just measure what 35 weeks is from this. We would have saw it was November 6th. We probably would have circled that date and said,
oh
damn,
my
we
God.
might be talking about this dude's funeral that day. And that's exactly what it was.
That, Zach, you've been for the last 7 years, you've been cracking the code of gematria and you daily decode the sports and the political news. What's your goal in doing this every day? And what do you hope to accomplish with your daily messages?
My goal is to start the revolution. I've always said revolution or bust. I knew how bad 2020 was going to be in 2013. I told people back then, I said, if we're not organized and awake, it's going to get ugly in 2020, 19 years after 2001. That's the chaos number. These people are all about order out of chaos. That's their whole thing. They do it by the numbers, 19-year cycles. And again, people need to realize the war on germs is coming 19 years after the war on terror, which came 19 years after the war on drugs, which came 19 years after the war on JFK's head, which was really the war on the courage of the people, because everybody learned to tuck their head like a turtle after the 60 assassinations with JFK and his brother and MLK and Malcolm X. That was all about sending a message. You speak out, here's your fate. And because everybody thinks and behaves like that, well, we got a society of people that just march around to tyranny now all day, and seemingly a neutered society. But my point is to help people find their pair. Sorry, ladies, the metaphorical pair, but
Yeah.
and honestly, I mean, I don't mean to sound sexist, but really, I'm calling on the men. I mean, I'm calling on everybody, but I expect the men to stand up. It's the men who I'm going to offend people in 2020, but anyway, anybody who will stand up, I'm calling on people to stand up and fight back and stop bowing down to authority and lies and deception. And my other thing is I just see people are under mind control. I'm trying to figure out how to break this mind control spell. And I think what I'm doing works for some people, but it obviously has a long way to go. So
Well, that brings me to my next question because sometimes in your videos, in several of your videos, sometimes you get kind of frustrated about some of the dumb people in the world or brainwashed citizens that research nothing and believe everything that's disseminated through the mainstream media. Why do you feel, we talked about mind control, but why do you feel this way about the majority of the people?
well, just look at them all right now marching around with their face diapers on, believing nonsense. I mean, just take a look at the people with the face diapers. That's all I got to say. It's almost everybody just marching around, believing lies, doing things that make no sense. And I mean, I've always been saying these people will believe anything as long as it comes from the authority. They're mindless. The media is their brain. They just regurgitate what they're told. They just follow instructions. They do not think. And we're all being led to slaughter. And I don't think that could be any more clear in 2020 as people are told that they're needless labor and they need to just stay home and collect a government check and starve themselves and do God knows what while they're, while at the same time, the mega corporations that really fund the nation, this fascist nation that it is, they're still open. They're the safe zones for coronavirus, but everybody else needs to stay home. And it's just too dangerous to go out there if you're mom and pop shop, so.
How do you feel about the mainstream media, and do you ever experience fear about uncovering the level of darkness that this world is surrounded by?
How do I feel about the mainstream media? Well, I don't want you to be taken down like I've been taken down. I don't know if I can answer that question. Last time I had the FBI knocking at the door, it was for saying what I really thought about the mainstream media. I think Thomas Jefferson said there needed to be a revolution every 19 years. And he said something about spilling blood is, the part of the way of preserving freedom. And I really see that seems to be very true at this day and age, because there's some people that really need to go because there's some really horrible people and they've had it coming for a long time. And I think a lot of them are in the media. Just to make a point, Don Lemon. And Don Lemon is they're all bad, but Don Lemon, just so people know about Don Lemon, go back and read the story of his sister falling through the ice and drowning on Jackie Robinson's birthday. There were 3 black celebrities dead in the news that day. Oscar Gamble, Major League Baseball player who died 42 days after his own birthday on Jackie's birthday, number 42. Kind of like how the Dodgers won the World Series this year. 4-2 on Jackie's funeral after Chadwick Boseman died on Jackie Robinson Day, really at age 42 before the media changed its age to 43.
Yeah.
Not that matters, Robinson equals 43, but anyway, on Jackie Robinson's birthday, Don Lemon's sister fell through the ice. Apparently, she was out skating on thin ice because that's what 40-some-year-old people do, right? And he fell through the ice and drowned. The baseball player who was known for his afro, Oscar Gamble, dies 42 days after his own birthday on the 42-date numerology. And Rajuel Butler, the Philadelphia basketball star, dies. And they all die on Jackie's birthday. And, of course, that was right before the Eagles won the rigged Super Bowl, which, by the way, for people who weren't here, I mean, we did say in week 3 of that NFL season why the Super Bowl would be the Patriots and Eagles. Now it was synced up with Donald Trump and the theater of people taking a knee and Colin Kaepernick and big afros. And anyway, all this stuff is part of a sick, demented ritual. And the thing about LaTonya Lemon, Don Lemon's sister, Rajuel Butler, and Oscar Gamble, what all those names have in common is they all equal 42 with the alphabetic order and rules of numerology. Just like the name Jackie equals 42 when you just run the alphabetic order in reverse. And again, just these same rituals with these same numbers, this sick stuff. And think about it, Don Lemon, he's a news anchor, so are many others, but this is why these people are the news anchors. They're the people in the world that are sick enough. For people who think I'm just picking on Don Lemon, I'm not. You look into these other people in the news, it's the same thing. The reason they're there is probably because they did off somebody in their family along the way. That we're being broadcast from the most evil, just nasty people that there ever was. And imagine the people who sit behind them and allow them to even have that throne. They're even worse. And so again, this is what America is, listening to people like this, the type of people who throw their sister through the freezing ice. I mean, talk about a horrible way to kill somebody. Not that I would ever kill my own sister for anything, but God, to drown him in freezing water. I mean, that's who these people are. So.
And because you're uncovering this kind of darkness, do you ever get
I didn't answer your question. I didn't gonna say, am I afraid? No, I'm not afraid. And here's a real honest thing. If these people came and killed me, I don't know if I can cuss on your show, but it would, I was going to say it'd be a effing relief almost. I mean, I don't mean to sound like I'm suicidal because I'm not. I just want to fight these people. But God, as bad as things are and as little as people respond and help out, it's like, man, if my consequence is that, I catch a bullet through the back of the head that I don't see coming, because that's how these people are. They'd come up from behind you. You know what? I guess the legacy, maybe the work would then, maybe people be like, well, the guy who's putting that out, he died. Maybe this is actually worth listening to, because apparently nobody cares so far, even though I haven't seen anybody do a fraction of anything as interesting in the time I've been here. I hate to sound so arrogant, but God, I haven't seen anything interesting out of the truth community in the last 7 years. I've seen them falling for every psyop. But again, I've been laying down real evidence, real proof, real accurate predictions. Like, damn, should have done enough already to wake up millions and get a movement happening against this tyranny. We pointed out exactly who it is, how they operate, made it clear as day. So if the consequence is death, I don't care. Honestly, I'm not afraid of that. If I didn't have to come back tomorrow and do this, trust me, my day would be easier. And that's just really how it is. But no, don't misinterpret what I'm saying. I do not want to die. That is not my goal. But to ask me that question, no, I'm not afraid of death, because I realize the consequence, it probably wouldn't be the worst thing in terms of what I'm trying to achieve anyway. I'm trying to make a movement happen. And I know when people die, sometimes that's when people finally take notice. So.
What are your thoughts about the pandemic? I know how you feel about, the pandemic, the Event 201 and the Claydex simulation. Do you feel like people watching that stuff is waking them up in any way, or do you feel like they are just...
think anybody's taking the time to watch it. It's just like... I bet you, if you even survey the people who follow me, I bet you like 10% of them maybe watch the highlight reel. So.
Wow. And those are the things, that's probably one of the most frustrating things of being in the truth community, is that the information that mostly that is being uncovered, it's literally available at your fingertips. So you can actually find everything that you talk about. It's all, researchable, and you can find it. What do you think? How do you think that people knowing gematria will help to improve our world system? And what do you think that can actually be done about the corruption?
Well, I think a lot could be done about the corruption. I think this system could be overthrown overnight if everybody stood up, because that's the way the whole system works. That's why they're so invested in mind control. As long as everybody marches along and does what they want them to do, then their system works. The day everyone stops and resists, then their system's over. So I mean, ultimately, that's my goal. What was the other part of the question you asked? Sorry.
I wanted to know how do you think that people knowing gematria will improve our world system, and how will that actually help them? Do you think that gematria is just too much for people to think about, or what do you think the biggest resistance is?
Well, I think the biggest problem is that people are truly dumb, but because we're just talking about basic addition, there's nothing complicated about gematria. And with all the automated I mean, when I started, I was doing this on pen and paper and a whiteboard, which still wasn't that much effort. Now we got automatic calculators, and it's still too much for people. But uh, what I think it can do for people is allow them to pull out of the, I call it the matrix. You know, the people that, you know, right now who are just on the, you know, they're getting so frustrated, they're so anxious about the football game. Oh my god, oh my anxiety, oh my god, and then they're just like drinking extra and they're munching down all these extra calories and doing nothing while sitting on their fatter and fatter ass watching
Yeah,
these rigged games. It allow them to pull out of that matrix. All these people right now that are all worked up about, is the election rigged in 2020? It's like, see, they're not even thinking about the right thing. Is the
that's
election rigged in
right.
2020? Oh, this should be a foregone conclusion. All these elections have been rigged. Now you're all caught up in this in 2020. Wow, how behind the curve are you? So again, to me, it's about aligning people, allowing them to actually see the forest for the trees, not keep falling for the deception, not be caught up in all this stuff that's supposed to steal their time and energy and their emotions, and get them fighting with their, you know, significant other or their friend or their neighbor or their, you know, their own family, or just whoever they run into on the street, like so many people are doing. I mean, the point of this knowledge is allow people to see what's really going on. Yes, we do live in a rigged system that's working against us, that's benefiting very few, which should again be super clear in 2020. That's why everything I've been harping on about, I mean, everybody really should see it this year. And it's just, you know, headlines about these billionaires setting records by the week, just getting wealthier and wealthier, while most people are just like, wow, I can't even have my store open. How come, you know, it's just
Yeah.
so.
While the rest of the world is starving.
Right.
Um, what do you think about the other true speakers, quote unquote true speakers, that don't speak about gematria? Do you think that they are doing a disservice to the people that they influence? Why or why not?
Well, I mean, you know, it's like maybe some people, they really hate math. And again, you know, the thing is I realize a lot of these people that are speaking out and have popular channels, you hear them say things and they'll say like, you know, I really just woke up like 5 or 6 years ago. So I'm like, okay, so first of all, they're not that awake.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason maybe people who aren't that awake might resonate more with others is just because they're more on the same plane. They're more like in the same point in life. Sometimes I think what I'm doing is, even though it's really not that complicated or advanced, it's still too advanced for people who are just like, oh, the election might be rigged this year. So at the same time, there's all these channels that have these huge platforms. Well, a lot of them have lost them in recent times because the censorship's just reaching more and more and more people. Some of these channels that had been invincible through the first 3 years of censorship have even gone down in 2020. But um, the thing is these people that eventually they'll just make like a quick quirp about how they're not really into gematria, and that might be the only time they broke it up and or brought up the topic in the time that they had these hundreds of thousands of subscribers. And at the same time, they'll have a commercial for this product and another commercial for this product. And in their 15-minute video, they've spent 2 minutes on commercials selling people stuff that they sell in every video. And it's like, you couldn't just at anywhere in this thing just mention like, there's this research out there, gematria, you might want to look into it. It could be the evidence for the agendas that we're trying to prove here. They could just bring this up and mention it and leave it up to their audience. But instead, it's like they never mention it, or if they do, it's like in some critical way, or, you know, a guy that kind of looks like a homeless caveman that has a pretty popular channel that sells all sorts of gizmos. He recently said, oh, you know, gematria, it's in English and there's lots of languages in the world. So, I mean, I don't really see why it would matter that it's in English. And it's like, okay, seriously, you've accumulated over 500,000 subscribers, and you talk about English like it's just another language, huh? English is just another language out there of many languages in the world? Or is it that it is the language of the world that pretty much everyone is learning to speak everywhere at this moment in time? And we all know that that is the answer. So I look at a lot of these big popular channels as complete frauds, honestly. and just keeping people in the box and stuck on the elections and Trump's their messiah. And to me, I mean, and that's kind of why I started making videos, because I looked around and I said, man, it doesn't seem like anyone's really put out anything good or meaningful in a long time. I don't see any evidence. I see a lot of people seem to be still stuck on the same old things. And yeah, I wanted to bring something new, and I feel like at least I've been successful in that. So.
Well, that's really good. You have a pretty strong following, and people really, there are a lot of people that are actually woke, and they're trying. I just think that there's more people that actually are still sleeping that kind of dominate the movement, and then they of course dispute the work of anything that is related to the truth by just reversing or rehearsing and reiterating what the mainstream media is speaking about. um a lot of these things have dark spiritual connections. What is your faith, and how has it been affected by the information that you've uncovered through gematria?
Sure. So I was raised a Lutheran. And for people who don't know, Lutherans are a sect of Christianity named after Martin Luther, who led the Protestant Reformation.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom came from a little town in North Dakota where it was divided. Half the town was Lutheran, the other half was Catholic. And my mom said when they were kids, a lot of parents didn't want their kids playing with the Catholics or the Lutherans or vice versa. And I would think about stories like that. And as I got older, I just had more and more questions about religion. And I started to notice, like, oh, well, he's Muslim. He's from a Muslim family. I wonder if I was from a Muslim family, if I would also be Muslim. And I just started to realize, like, oh, okay. As I got older, I was like, you grow up in this religion. Oh, you're a Mormon. Interesting. I never heard of a Mormon before. I was like 8 years old when I met my first Mormon.
Mm-hmm.
Jewish. Oh, interesting. I wonder if I would be Jewish. And so you have these kids questions as you grow up, and then you start to realize, like, everybody just kind of believes what they were taught to believe as kids. And when I get to whatever age it was, 11 or 12, confirmation age, my mom wants me to be confirmed. And I remember at the time I was more interested in other things. I liked, sports and whatnot, and church in the evening time was going to cut into my sports. And, so anyway, I'd go to church and I'd ask all these questions, and my mom would come to pick me up, and the pastor's name was Jake, and my mom would come, and Pastor Jake would be like, Donna, today Zach, he had to wait out here with me because the teacher felt he was disrupting the class by asking stuck on this question. And so eventually I just got kicked out of confirmation class because there was just too many. It was pretty much the same thing every week. I was kicked out of class for getting stuck on some topic and asking too many questions. And if it seemed responsible as people to believe in stories of people surviving in big fish. And anyway, I forget how old I was. I was 12 or 13, and when everybody else was getting confirmed, Pastor Jake put out an invitation to my mom that if I wanted to come speak at the confirmation, so I didn't feel left out, if I wanted to speak as well. And I think I can't remember exactly how it was. I think I didn't want to speak, but my mom wanted me to. So I remember I wrote a speech about why I no longer believed in Christianity, but why I was still going to follow the golden rule. And I just remember, because I had to speak in front of the church group, and I just remember looking out at the faces, and it looked like honestly, it looked like the Antichrist was up on the podium. So anyway, I mean, I've always lived by the golden rule. I try to do what's right for people. I try to help out people. I see a homeless guy needs some money. I got some money in my pocket. Somebody falls down. I remember when I was a young kid, I saw it's still stuck in my head. I saw this old, elderly woman, probably in her 80s. She tripped going into church as a kid, and she fell down, and bam, and her head was bleeding. And I was one of the first people that just ran up and just wanted to help her. And she looked at me and she said I was an angel. And I always think of that. And, but God, it was just so horrible to witness this old woman just fall down and smash her head. But she was okay, but she had the gouge. And anyway, I think just to say, I mean, I've always been a good person, but I've always been a questioning person. And to me, religion feels kind of silly. And I have simple questions like, why would God's master plan be to send a man to earth at one point at his son to die on the cross for everybody's sins? I mean, I guess maybe God could just want everybody to believe in a story, and maybe that is the most important thing to God, that you just believe in what he's done. And a lot of people feel that way. But to me, it's like, I just feel like God could I just don't, that doesn't add up for me. I mean, it just doesn't resonate with me. But doing the right thing and helping people and being about more than yourself and materialism, I mean, these are all the things I've always been. So I was raised on all the stories of Jesus, and I guess those are still my spiritual foundation, but just ultimately the Christian belief system, it just how so many people, just the one thing is that you just got to believe. Again, as it was pointed out to me later in life, Zach, lie is right in the middle of the word believe. I said, oh, that's interesting the first time that was pointed out. And, it's one of those things when it's pointed out to you, you think about it all the time. It's like, yeah, maybe religion is corrupted and authority is corrupted and they just want everybody believing and not thinking. And those are kind of the conclusions I've arrived at. So.
Well, so it looks like we've covered so many of my questions. You've a lot of your information kind of covered some of the questions I had. Do you have anything else that you want people to know about gematria or about the work that you do?
Yeah, the most fascinating thing about gematria that I've found is that there's actually an organic side to this, which gives some insight onto why they would be doing this. Because again, in Kabbalah's Book of Formation, it's expressed in the opening paragraph of the book. God created the world with numbers, letters, and words. And it's kind of like Genesis, where God speaks the world into existence over numbered days.
Mm-hmm.
When I first began with this research, something like that sounded silly to me. But now, because of 7 years of experience and just noticing kind of how things do seem to work with this knowledge and information in mind, it really does seem like there is something going on with numbers in our own lives. I call it the organic side of the code. Numerologists write about this. But I've just had so many amazing synchronicities in numbers since I began this research. And I'll always go back to this example because it happened when I first began. And when I first started it, if you were with me in 2013, the numbers that I talked about again and again and again, and I still talk about them all the time to this day, are 33, 47, 74. And I
Mm-hmm.
kind of came to the conclusion that 47 and 74 seem to be some of the most important numbers and reflections of each other as equivalents. And I was putting out so much content talking about these numbers. Um, and it was just months after I really started making videos and blogging and talking about this. I had two girls reach out to me. I shouldn't say girls, two women reach out to me who I had dated in the past, but I hadn't talked to either of them in more than 2 years. One, it had been more than 2 years, the other even time before that. And it was so strange because they both text messaged me just like 20 minutes apart from each other on the date April 7th, 4-7, or also written 7-4. And
Wow.
then I just had to look, and just with the most simple cipher, the alphabetic order, one's name was Maddie, her name Maddy, added up 47. Maddie equals 47, and the other woman's name Trish, just with the alphabetic order, her name was 74. And I was like, how weird is this? These girls who I haven't talked to in forever both text me out of
Wow.
nowhere at like the same time, and their names are 47 and 74, and on this date of all days. And I was just so weirded out. And since then, I mean, there's been a whole bunch of other really strange stories, but it made me think about all the stuff I was learning back then. Because if you just write out with the alphabetic order, energy equals 74, and English is 74, and Gematria, the practice of going numbers into words, is 74, and occult 74. And this number's just used so much, 74. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, so I'm putting out all this stuff about 47 and 74 into the world. I'm putting it out on a computer screen. People are watching it in different places. It's like a numerologist would tell you that essentially you're doing like this invisible magic. You're putting out this energy, this frequency, and that will come back to you. Well, on April 7th, out of the blue, two women I haven't talked to in forever with the right numbers in their own names, and it's not like they're the only two girls I ever dated in the world, but these two just to text on the exact same day of all days in the period of time where I'm talking about these things and researching these things and observing things, to me that seemed like a confirmation. And something that I was talking about a lot back then was how with just the alphabetic order, energy is 74, weapon is 74, nuclear is 74, and how the World Trade Centers were in Manhattan on the 74th meridian, and the Manhattan Project was to develop nuclear weapons. And there's a whole lot more to that. They called it ground zero, where before 9/11 the only definition point above or below ground where a nuclear atomic explosion happens. So I would always talk about that example with 74 in energy. And yeah, so again,
And
when you become
you're
aware
from
of the
Oregon.
numbers and the meaning, you'll just make so many interesting observations about patterns like that you might otherwise not think twice about. Or you know what, if you were in my shoes and you got two texts from two women that you hadn't talked to in forever, you might be like, why did that happen today? That is such a weird coincidence. Is that some sort of meaning in my life? Is that a sign? Am I missing something? Well, with this knowledge, it just gives you a little more insight. You know what I mean? It's like it gives you knowledge is power. It gives you a little bit extra edge on the world. And then, to me, the more knowledge you have, the more likely you are to be open-minded too. At first,
Hmm.
I read in the Book of Formation that God created the world with numbers, letters, and words, and I think, that sounds silly. Come on. I mean, how does that make any sense? But then you start to witness things and you're like, well, wait a minute. Maybe there is something going on here more than I ever knew. So
That's that's pretty neat. And then, even with, aren't you from Oregon too? With
I am from Oregon.
74.
Yep. The only state that sums to 74. That's the
Yeah.
point you're making, right?
Yeah,
Indeed.
that's
Indeed.
pretty neat. That's pretty. Yeah, so I think that there may be an organic side to gematria too. I again, gematria is one of those things that it's just something that just actually exists, and no matter which way you try to ignore it, it actually is still how things are being done. So you have to kind of, I hear a lot of, I get a lot of people who are Christians, quote unquote Christians, and they really look at gematria as some sort of a satanic, it is, I think, ultimately that it does have some sort of, because of the way that it's being used is satanic, but I don't think that in order to know who your enemy is, unfortunately, you have to kind of do what they're doing. You kind of have to look at what they're doing, and that's just how they do it. And so I don't think there's any evil in actually cracking the code of gematria. I just feel like the people that use gematria to run the world system are evil. So,
Indeed.
so I don't think that there's anything wrong with, how people are actually arriving to this information.
Exactly.
Um,
Know your enemy is the
hmm.
phrase to back up
Yeah,
what you're saying. And that's exactly how I am. I see that they're doing something. I'm trying to understand them. I'm trying to expose them. I'm trying to end their agenda. I mean, these are my goals. To me, you got to know your enemy. You got to know how they operate.
that's right.
So,
Um, do you think that everybody who, and I mean, I know you haven't actually taken the time to actually decode every story that's ever been, historically presented, but do you think that pretty much everybody who's being killed in the industry, or people who are being, who are attached to that, I guess, satanic world, do you think that they're dying organically, or do you think that they're all being killed by the code of gematria?
some could die organically. There's absolutely an organic side to the code, but you just look at all these young entertainers, and you just look things like at Juice World. Juice World's death was about a year ago now. He put out
Hmm.
that tweet that said, "I'm gonna blow up, and in a couple years, I'm gonna fake my death." And then a couple years later, he's a big name now in the industry, and he's dead reportedly. And then again, it's another one of these numerical rituals, and we even saw that his Twitter handle, the way he spelled it out with the extra letters, it equaled 128. What day does he die on? 12/8. And he put
Mm.
out that tweet on that account. So, I think some people are dying, but then I know that death sells. I mean, you always see that they'll always put the headlines up when these big entertainers die, especially when they've been gone or you haven't heard about them for a while. It's like, you know, all of a sudden there'll be a headline about how much their sales are up now that they've passed, and so you realize it's all part of the industry. So there's motivation to lie, obviously, but at the same time, I guess there'd be motivation to kill these people because sadly we live in a world where people kill each other for power, material wealth, gain, and those are just the dark truths about some people within humanity. So, and again, just to come back to your spiritual question, I mean, there's people in this world who would kill you to get ahead. And then there's people
Mhm.
in this world who will try to help you and they don't even know you. And so,
Mhm.
and the people in those different groups, they could identify as any type of religion. That's why to me, I don't care what religion you're in. I just care about your behavior and what you're actually about.
Mhm.
People will lie. I mean, I'm sure there's a killer out there who would kill you and he'd say, I'd never kill anybody. But I know who I am. I would never kill anybody to get ahead or get something for myself. The only way I would ever kill anybody, honestly, is if I had to defend myself. I wouldn't ever want to be the aggressor on killing anybody. I mean, that's the way I feel about that. But there's a time and a place for everything, and people, I also try to get people to think about things outside of the box, because even like you asked me, your spirituality, that is such a common question in this field. People always say, what do you believe? And then sometimes I'll honestly respond, they'll say, oh, I don't want to follow you then because I only listen to Christians. It's like, don't you realize that's such a bad way to think, to only listen to
Yeah.
people who believe like you? I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. And and that's sad, because that means that you are already putting yourself in a very limited box,
Right.
and you're not really willing to be open to things that because if you even look at the way that God thinks, I mean, you wouldn't God is his he has to be this infinite power that is obviously very wise and knows all things. So you would think that people would want to, fill themselves up with as much knowledge as possible just to make sure that they're getting the right perspective, because people do
Right.
lie. But that's not what they want. You get a lot of people who just are just comfortable in their own knowledge. And there's a lot of people that, as even when I talk to people and I explain to them the evil of the Catholic Church and the Jesuit order, and it's like they will not see the Pope in any light but a man of honor. And it's like, are you kidding me? What has he done to prove that? What
And
has the Catholic Church given you to prove that?
exactly a history of killing all over the planet, doing things by force if you don't believe the same as them. So that's why they say those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. And sadly, I mean, we really do live in a society where all most people really know about are things that relate to entertainment and consumerism. You can talk to most people in America all day about those things, but you talk about the kind of stuff I care about, they don't know anything about anything. So
Do you see stories like you did a really big decode on Kobe Bryant, and you actually always, for people who are following your work, you always actually find things that actually relate, the rituals that relate back to the Kobe Bryants and the LeBron James. Do you find is it defeating when you look like you do a decode like that, and then you look at the mainstream media, you look at I don't know if you follow people on Instagram and do all that stuff, but you see the millions of people that gravitate to the lie,
yeah,
and the RIPs and the
it's
stuff
not
like that.
defeating. It's just like, it's like, man, I got to figure out something else to. That's all I always feel is like, God, I got to get the word out. I just got to figure out how to reach more of these people. I know they'll resonate if they can hear it, and that's been the biggest frustration, is just all the censorship. I mean, I really have had my channel deleted 19 times, and it's about more than that. I mean, people are commenting every day. I got unsubscribed again. I got unsubscribed again. I never get a notification. It's like, how are you supposed to have a successful channel when you keep getting deleted? And I mean, at this point, it's crying about what I already know, because it's been going on for 3 years. But you just realize, I mean, it is hard to get out a message in terms of the system. There's so many things that they have to hold down dissenting voices. And I know that the reason they work so hard to hold down dissenting voices is because, like you just said, those millions that always go for the lie, you could chip
Mhm.
away at that number if you could reach more of them with a counter message. And
That's
it's
right.
getting harder and harder to get the counter message out. So
Yeah, and it's a lot of people that just won't see them as anything but the gods that they worship. Because really that's what it really is. And I really, you know, my one of my main goals is to get turn people's attention, because we really spend a lot of time glorifying people, and it's in our world system. We really, really do. I mean, whether it's through sports, whether it's through entertainment, whether it is through our media outlets, it's just we spend a lot of time giving people all this credit, and we're buying into it. You listen to a lot of the rap music, and you listen to a lot of the anything that's actually being disseminated to the masses, and it's garbage, and it's bad. It's really, really bad, and it has a consequence to it. You are what you eat. And
right.
so I find it, I find gematria to be very, very awesome. And I think that a lot of young people, um, will gravitate a lot more to this message too, because a lot of them are at that, stage where they're questioning authority, they're questioning things, and some things that just don't make any sense to them. And, my goal is to see a lot of the young people see that people that are dying. Does that look like that's something you want to be attached to? You know,
Right.
because so many young people want to be into, to be rappers, and some of them they want to be in the entertainment industry, and I think that the entertainment industry uses their influence and money to lure them in, and then boy, all hell breaks loose. So I agree with all your work. I'm so proud of you. I think I tell you that often, and I just am excited about this. I'm gonna, put this interview together, and I'm gonna disseminate this to people, because there are a lot of people that actually support you, Zach, and that really believe in what you do. And I want to just be one of those outlets that, pushes your work and make sure that we know what's going on. I see that they have again censored you again on the Amazon. It's just so hard to, they sell your book sometimes, and then they take it. It's like they'll give it. It looks like are they on December 9th now?
It's just so frustrating. I just don't even pay attention. And Book Baby's not helpful either. And I just realized it's just like, that's the problem. It's like, to get your stuff out there, you have to use outlets that are theirs. So
Yeah.
it's like, at least they're at least printing it and kind of putting it out there. But then at the end of the day, it's theirs. And I just realized I have no leverage with either one. I mean, the only way I could do it, essentially, it seems like, is set up my own printing press, and imagine the resources that would take.
I'm
So
telling you.
that's the thing. The people who control this world, that's what you realize. I mean, they really did build the world around us. The industrialists, the people who designed the world as we know it's their world. They have built a playground for us, and they control
Hmm.
that playground, and the playground is managed.
Yeah.
And you want to see how they manage it? Learn this code. You'll see how repetitive it is. So.
Yeah. Well, we hope that the work can keep getting spread around. It might just have to, I always think about, well, it might have to go back to those times where people were just handing out pamphlets and handing out books, hand over hand in the streets.
Seriously,
Sometimes,
you
yeah.
saying that? Here's the last thing I want to say. What you saying that? My idea is my new idea, and I haven't even pitched it yet. But I'm thinking, like, we need to get a big gathering of truth seekers for like New Year's Eve to like kick off like a message. Like, these are our goals for the world, to get people organized to do these things in 2021. Because if not, here's what's coming for us.
That's
Just
right.
we need to show like some gathering, some community, some willingness to take a stand. And I was thinking maybe that's the time to do it. Maybe New Year's for the new plan. So
Absolutely. You need a leader in every city. You need one leader to or one or two leaders in every city to organize it and get those people together, because it always takes a leader to organize something and kind of get it done, and everybody be on one accord, and it can get done. Because I know here in Houston, oh my gosh, so there's probably a lot, because I hear on your show there's probably a lot of people. You're starting to reach a lot of people, and that's good movement. You're getting even more people, like people I noticed that a lot of your callers are like all over the world, or you know what I mean. So that's really awesome. So if you got somebody from every city to really push that agenda, and some of your people that you're training up are pretty powerful. Their stories are great. Their decodes are great. And it seems like they're hitting them from all different angles. So I just feel like you're not that far off from where you want to be. You keep up the hard work, and you have a good support system of people who actually believe in you. So that's the good news. And I'm one of those people. I just try not to be biased about it because I try to, present from an unbiased perspective. But at the end of the day, I totally believe in it. You know. So
yeah, no, I think you did a good job of that. Your first question sounded very unbiased. So
yeah, I try not to be, but I know I know how I feel about it, because I know that this was the first work that actually made sense to me, because you hear so much, about conspiracy theories, and it really that does nothing for me, because you really wouldn't have a theory if a conspiracy didn't exist. So I really hate when people try to knock everything to conspiracy theory, but the thing about gematria is it's the first thing that I've ever seen that actually can get you to who's actually doing all this stuff. You
indeed,
know, and
indeed.
that's what's so freeing about it.
And you know what? Just one more point. On the day of this interview is the day that Pope Francis has officially made the first African American a cardinal, the way it is in the headlines.
Mm.
And this was Wilton Gregory out of Chicago. And today, the day that they do this, it's a date with 59 numerology. And we know what
Wow.
that number means in Black history. Slave,
Right.
Negro, Blues, Rasta, they're all
Rust.
59. If you look into his history, he became a priest with the Catholic Church in 1973 on the date May 9th, 5/9. He became a
Mm.
priest with the Catholic Church. And he was first appointed on October 25th, end of
Mm-hmm.
last month, and we talked about that before. We talked about the ritual that was clearly going on before it happened. Again,
With the
we saw that.
Seahawks.
What's that?
Was this the game with the Seahawks and the
And the Cardinals.
Cardinals?
It sure
Yeah,
was.
that was
And we
the
said,
yeah.
look at this. We said if the Cardinals win tonight, because remember, Tom Brady was supposed to be Sunday Night Football, and they pushed Tom Brady out of Sunday Night Football and put in
Yeah.
Kyler Murray, the young black quarterback for the Cardinals, on the night of Pope Francis appointing the first black cardinal, who's from Chicago, just like how the Cardinals are originally from Chicago. Now they're in Arizona, but they used to be the Chicago Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, look, if the Cardinals win, they will be 5-2 tonight, and if the Seahawks lose, they will be 5-1. And with the alphabetic order, Pope is 52, like we're on the 52-week year, named after Pope Gregory.
Mm.
And I said, if the Seahawks lose, they'll be 5-1, and Rome equals 51. Well, now today's the day he officially becomes a cardinal in Rome, and it's exactly 51 weeks after his birthday. So
Wow.
you just see how perfect the rituals are. And again, we've been shown that the Jesuits control the world of sports. This year in 2020, it's become 100% clear to me that they are the tip of the spear. They control this whole new world order, whatever it is. But yeah, they control it, from the politics to the politicians to the sports to the news stories, and they just put it all together. And things like that, I mean, they really are in your face, and almost nobody blinks an eye. Everyone should be going, wait a minute, kicking Tom Brady out of prime time? When has this ever happened? And for the Cardinals, on the
Okay.
day that the Pope's appointing the first black cardinal? I mean,
And that was the game that I actually could have threw my TV away. Um, I have not watched another football game since then, and the reason why is because I think that was the first time that I actually ever saw because I'm not really that into the sports side of gematria, because I am more into I like mainstream news, but I had always loved the Seahawks because, again, I remember I told you I'm from Washington and grew up in Portland, and so I I never looked at them the same again. It was just the most heartbreaking. It was like the most heartbreaking ritual I had ever seen, and I've never, ever since then, I'm like denounced my loyalty to the Seahawks, because I feel like, as a fan, which I've been a fan for as long as Russell Wilson has been in, the game, I have just been bamboozled. I felt so manipulated, and I was like, this stuff is real. Oh
uh,
my
uh,
God.
again, go back to that game where they lost at the goal line to the Patriots. It was
Yes.
February 1st, 2-1. The down was 2nd and 1. Russell Wilson's 21st pass attempt of the game gets intercepted by number 21, who goes to the ground with 21 seconds. And the
Wow.
common terminology in football for an interception is pick. Pick equals
Mm-hmm.
21 in gematria.
Oh my God.
Just perfect script. Everybody knows you hand off to Marshawn Lynch, you win the game. Marshawn Lynch always go forward for inches, which is all they needed for the touchdown. So
That's all they needed. And even back then, it's just the sickness of it all. You get your emotions
that's why they
so,
do it. That's why they
yeah.
script it just like that. And then look at what happened this year. The Seahawks host the Patriots. And how does
Yeah.
that game end this year for the Seahawks? The
Oh, it was,
Patriots at the 1 yard line could not convert, and the game ended right at the 1 yard line in the Seahawks' favor.
yeah, it's sickening. So I appreciate that work for that, because I'm saving thousands. You're helping me there. Because I just am not into it anymore. I mean, I was one of those people that was always on the field, like every game, as often as possible. I would fly from Houston to Seattle to go see the Seahawks. So it was huge.
Wow.
So, so thank you so much for that kind
Hey,
of
since you're
work.
in Houston, hey, this Thanksgiving game, the Texans become 4-7, the Lions become 4-7. Ford Field equals 47. If you look up Henry Ford, he died on April 7th in the year 47, 47, 47.
Mm.
And the Lions like that number a lot. And then, of course, the games on Thanksgiving were on a 41 date numerology. The
Mm-hmm.
Texans became 4-1 at Detroit for their career, winning with 41 points. And notice Washington beat Dallas with 41 points, and in Gematria, Dallas equals 41. And there used to be a Dallas Texans football franchise early in the early days of NFL history. And look at the scores. It was 41-25 for
Mm-hmm.
66 combined points in the Houston and Lions game. Lions equals 66, Houston Texans 66, Thanksgiving 66. And then in the second game, the score was 41-16. Well, even if you add up the points of the losing teams, 25-16, even
Mm-hmm.
41 points for the losing teams. Matt Stafford stayed on 41 home wins. Again, when you learn this knowledge, you can see just how scripted the games are and how ritualistic they are. And just like before those games were played, we talked about 41 and 66 would likely be big numbers on the day. And they
They
are.
were.
66 is always big on Thanksgiving because Thanksgiving's 66, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
11th triangular number, and football's a game of 11 on 11, and Thanksgiving's in the 11th month. So 66 is always big. But this year, the 41 date numerology stood out with the numbers in the matchups, and then both scores end up being 41, 41. And for people who followed for years, they just know that we always talk about these numbers before the games, and then they end up being the numbers in the score and the big star player of the game. It's when you learn the numbers, you can just laugh at politics, you can just laugh at rig sports and just finally be like, you know what? I'm not all caught up in investing all this energy. Now I'm just laughing at this and I can actually enjoy the day instead of being in an anxiety for 3 hours while the game's going on.
And that's the truth because you actually can't, like this whole political election was comedy. I laughed harder than I've ever laughed, because it was usually, and I've never really been into I actually hate politics because I always felt like that there was a sinister system behind me, that was actually lying to me. I like you. I always felt like I was being lied to. And so I've never been into, which candidate is doing what. And I haven't participated in a vote in probably since I was maybe, I haven't voted for years. Probably the first Obama election I did vote because I felt like I had a duty to do that. But I wish that I wouldn't have participated, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Um, so I do appreciate that these are the good, things that we can go back and realize that we're not sucking all of our time in these scripted things because they take so much of our time and our energy. And you have to know that this is all meant for bad for us. So, there's so many other topics that we could talk about, Zach. I probably will. Maybe one day I'll have to do another refresher with you in a few months just so that we can see what's going on in 2021 and see what happens over the next few months and what's unfolded for us because we know we're going into just a little period of darkness. Do you have anything to say for people who are afraid of what's coming?
Well, I would just say don't live in fear. But I mean, in reality, I would also it's a time to be vigilant and aware because they're forecasting a lot of really negative things to come. And I'll remind people that a lot of times, the clues they put out there for what's coming, they're actually more drastic and scarier than they actually are. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, I mean, it is a dark time, and there's dark agendas at play, and they're forecasting things such as a major power outage in the middle of winter, which could be a deadly and devastating and very frightening thing for a lot of people. But even though this is the case, I mean, still don't live in fear. Just prepare yourself. Be mentally prepared. If this happens, how am I actually going to react? Instead of freaking out and feeling, I mean, take steps so that, okay, I have some water. I have some dry food if there's not electricity. I have blankets. Just make sure you're prepared in case they do that instead of freak out.
Yeah,
And
with
but
the
yeah,
dark
it's never
winter.
good to live in fear. And more importantly, help wake up yourself, help wake up other people, try to organize. Just I always imagine if just like in 50 cities, if there was four people who cared about the truth in 50 major cities in the world, if they just made an effort once a week to get together and go to a busy intersection and try to get a message about something, just how many people, just those four people, and I guess technically be 200 people in 50 cities worldwide, but just a group of 200 people working together, going out on a weekend, getting some information out, talking about things. I mean, it could be healthy just for them, just to be around people like them and socialize. But I've been trying to get people to do this on my website, Free to Find Truth. Organize, share your city, use an anonymous name, network, communicate with people, meet in a public place, try to do something, and really, instead of just being in fear, just start thinking like, okay, I need to actively do something so that these things I'm afraid of don't come true. Because sadly, those dark things in our mind, I don't know if it's a month away or a year away or 10 years away or still many decades away, because sometimes they foreshadow stuff that's just still planned out way in advance. But we're seeing a big sign in 2020 how we can be
Hmm.
just so easily moved and steered and controlled, and it's only going to get worse if people don't stand up.
Yeah.
So that's what I would
Yeah.
say.
Well, thank you so much. I enjoyed my time talking to you. 2020 has been the year of death, um, and it doesn't seem like it's going to let up anytime soon, especially with the new rollouts of the second wave and the new vaccine and all that good stuff. You know, it doesn't point towards anything but death, and even in the numbers of everything, it just seems to be pointed towards death. So I hope that more people get woke up and that more people start spreading the message. I will do as much as I can to support. Thank you so much for your time. Anything else, Zach?
Well, just for my audience, where can people check out Seven Urban Magazine? I showed them your website. Is there more?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna be building more now. I'll just tell you real quickly. Seven Urban Magazine. I used to believe that it was my job to do all the stories for entertainers, and I used to do a lot of interviews, and I used to chase celebrities around. Um, the truth is that I'm not interested in that anymore. I'm not. I'm far from that, and I really want to just now support people who are in the truth community, people who are telling the truth. And I am not interested in, doing anything that even is remotely close to anything that mainstream media is doing. So I kind of had to revamp my platform. So we're building it back up with truth. So it's an empty canvas for people who I have room for writers. I have room for people who are truth speakers, who are actual truth speakers, and people who are independent musicians, all talents that are not related to the mainstream network. I don't want anything that is related to the mainstream network. I want all independent people. So that canvas is ours to build up. And as I network with more people who are connected to truth, you'll see more things going up. So I try to keep it updated, and also keep it relevant. And I actually would like to see the wealth of the wicked get transferred into the hands of the righteous. So I actually am not a fan of that whole, you know, the domination of the mainstream. So I've kind of redirected to go back to the independent, which is something that I've always had the heart to do. It's just that for the first I just didn't realize how evil the industry really was. I thought that there was picks and choices of the industry that was, some parts of it was nice and some parts of it was evil. No, it's all evil. So now my main thing is to try to keep people from actually getting into that, and trying to support the independent. So that's what it's about. 7urbanmagazine.com is where you can find us. And eventually, I would like to be able to reach people that are like in, prison, or people that, don't have access to online through print. So you'll be seeing some print coming out from 7 Urban Magazine here in 2021. And because I believe that there's going to be a time that we will all be off the internet, and we'll be having to do that real hand-to-hand movement. So that's pretty much what 7 Urban Magazine is about. It's about promoting the independent and promoting people who are speaking the truth, um, and sending out positive messages and high vibrations.
Very cool. Yeah, the world needs more of that. So
Yeah.
that's great. Thank you for doing that.
Yes. So, yeah, so any of your people are more than welcome to, it's a platform. So, freelance writers, anybody who has something that is actually valuable for the masses to read, because as more and more people know about 7 Urban Magazine, which a lot of people already know about 7 Urban Magazine, a lot of people, because I've been doing a lot of work and freelance work and, for years. But as I'm rebuilding the portal, A lot of people, I want when people come there that they are just saturated with truth and that perhaps their mind can be changed about anything. So I'm just trying to just network with people that are actually dedicated to truth.
Very cool. Are you posting your interviews that you're doing somewhere?
Yeah, I'm going to be posting this one. You actually will be. I used to post them all the time, but again, these were. I. I mean, I've done like interviews with Destiny's Child, Beyonce. These are things that I've done over the years, and those you could tell that I was still just. I wouldn't say a lost journalist, but I was a fan.
Sure.
So
Sure.
I didn't, there was no way that I could present truth through those kind of articles that I used to do because I was too much of a, mainstream. I was just like
Sure.
the people who were ineffective.
Well, I guess that's just how it is when you wake up too, is just your priorities change. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So I've met I have been around so many celebrities. Jay-Z, I mean from the time I was 21 years old, all of them. I've seen all of them. I've either been backstage, in some capacity or just interviewing them or talking to them or learning from them. And it just, now years later, it's like, wow, I'm so happy that I was never in that industry. For some reason, I was never allowed to cross over into that industry. And like it, so I'm very happy to be where I'm at today because it's like, oh my God, I could have been dead.
Sure, exactly. It's like, wow.
Hmm.
And that's why you're doing what you're doing now. It's just like you don't
Yeah.
want people to fall into the same trap you almost fell into. So
Yeah.
mhm.
So, yep, I'm here for them. So, and I'm here for, and you guys, there's a lot of smart people there. So, anybody who wants to network with Seven Urban Magazine, even if Jonathan has some stuff that he wants to put up there, relative to the music, because he does a lot of the decoding on the hip hop, and anything that you guys think will be helpful, just let me know. And I can be reached at 7 Urban Online. I'm sorry, 7urbanmagazine.com. So, that's 7 urbanmagazine.com. If you have any, if you want to correspond with me or talk to me about something, you're more than welcome.
All right. I appreciate that very much. And I'll send people to your website. So
All right.
I'll look for when you got
I'll let you know. I'll
the link.
shoot you a link and let you know when you're up.
All right.
It'll probably be up tonight.
Well, I look forward to it. Thank you so much.
I'm so excited. All right, Zach, you should shoot me over a picture that you want me to add to the story.
Mm, a picture. All right. I got to think about that. That's not my expertise. Okay. I'll just let you know if you come up with your own picture. That's fine too. But I'll think about a picture.
I'll see if I can find one. I'm sure you have a couple out there.
Okay.
All
All
right,
right.
buddy. We'll talk
All right.
soon.
Yeah. You have a good day. Take care.
You too. Bye.